As I told someone earlier, this is business now. I'm not sure I'm going to inspire you now. You were inspired this morning, and inspiration is for a purpose. So we're going to talk about the purpose of that, and we're literally going to get into an entrepreneurial conversation. These are the types of conversations that I take into the business communities around the world, be it Australia, Mexico, or Canada. We're talking about the word win. How do we as individuals win once we've made the decision to do something? Because oftentimes what we tend to do, we recognize the entrepreneur, what he or she has done, and we celebrate that. But it's the end game that we tend to celebrate, their success. But today we're going to talk about the process that we can all access that will allow us to accomplish whatever our goals and objectives are. Because heretofore in the past, it may have been thought that what the entrepreneur brought to the table, the Warren Buffetts of the world, the Herb Kellers of the world, the Steve Jobs of the world, they may have some special sauce that's theirs. And, we didn't get that bottle at our house, so therefore we are not them. But I can assure you, for the most part, there is no special sauce. There is the potential for an opportunity. And this is what we're going to talk about, win. So it's going to be very participatory as well, so I'm excited about that. Now, shift your thinking, win where you stand. What I mean by that is this. For many people who are in the world of business, in the world of entrepreneurship, or just living their lives, oftentimes we are looking for another place, something else, in order to define the winning situation for us. But I firmly believe that if we can't win where we are, we would take the nervous challenges with us to the new place. So how do we win where we are so that we can be successful wherever we go? So that's kind of the part of this that we'll be talking about. And the two phrases that I like best, I can do this, I will do this. And once you get to know me, I love to count to three. I do know 4 or 5 is after that, but I count to 3. And let's say I can do this, I will do this. 1, 2, 3.
I can do this, I will do this.
Now this is very important because most of us really fit into this category. I can do this. But there's a big chasm between I can do this and I will do this. Because it is the will do this that comes to life that really makes the difference. That makes the difference as to whether or not we will be successful. I know that I could potentially sell Stairmaster when we were bringing that to the market, but the newspapers were calling it stairs to wear. Well, who want to walk on stairs that's not going anywhere? So that was part of the conversation. It was almost looked at as a joke. I mean, the machine itself was not good looking. It was nothing aerodynamic about it. And unfortunately, I did not have one muscle to spare. So that meant I didn't look like I'd ever used it. So therein lies a problem for me. But even though I knew that I could do it, in that chasm that we often face, there are challenges that baits the question, okay, will I do it? Will something keep me from doing this? What are the barriers? What are the roadblocks that are there? But for the entrepreneur who succeeds, they move beyond I can do this to I will do this. How do they get across that chasm? How do they build that bridge? Who's involved in that bridge building process? What does this mean for the entrepreneur? And what does it mean for the employee who has an entrepreneurial mindset? Because I'm thoroughly convinced that entrepreneurial thinking is just as valuable within a corporation as it is in a startup. One of my clients is ONEOK, which is one of the large midstream pipeline companies in our country. And they're having to look at entrepreneurial thinking and the growth mindset because of the disruption in the oil industry. Now, disruptions can be either good or bad. When oil went up to $100 a barrel, that was a disruption, but it was a good disruption for the oil companies. However, without, no one sent them a telegram, no one sent them notice that all of a sudden it's going to plummet down to 43, 38. That's a disruption as well, a bad disruption. When these disruptions occur, leadership has to have a different way of looking at their business model. That's where entrepreneurial thinking and the growth mindset comes into place because it provides that model for you. It provides the attributes that are essential to move us to the next level. As a writer, this is the book that I teach from. Shift your thinking, win where you stand. And in this book, we're going to introduce you to the 7 entrepreneurial strategies. The first strategy is about decision making, and that's the very, very first one. That's chapter 1 in the book. It is called Choose Your Mindset. That is where you make the decision that will guide your business, guide your startup, and impact the people that work with you. If this chapter is overlooked, most likely or very likely, you will not be able to achieve what you've set out to do. Chapters 2 through 7, that's the process chapters. Because oftentimes you can make a decision, but will you do the work that is necessary? Because one thing I have learned over the years of my life, there are 2 words that are absolutely essential to success. Now, I'm going to give you these 2 words. You cannot tell anybody that you have them, because I don't want anybody in the world to have these words but you. I'm going to give you these 2 words, and this is how you spell them. HARDWORK. Those are the 2 words. I mean, that's the real secret sauce to success. Those 2 words. Now, don't tell anybody what they are. You just spell them HARDWORK. That starts the second chapter, which is Be Determined. And then it goes from there to chapter 7, Resolve to Succeed. In the area of success, even though we bring other people into our lives to help us move from one place to the other, a lot of the heavy lifting is left to us. We have to make the decision that we are going to do this. We have to make the decision that we don't have to have happy hour. We have to make the decision that 24/7 we'll learn to live with that, and we're going to maximize it to the best of our abilities. These are the decisions that we make. And if you talk to any entrepreneur who has been successful, be it your native Warren Buffett, now Howard indicated, the family as such, they will tell you that the starting process does not look like the ending process. The Buffetts today were not the Buffetts yesterday. To get from yesterday to the day, there is a process. And that's what I said this morning. The power will always be in the process. So 1, 2, 3, I want everybody to say the power is in the process. 1, 2, 3.
The power is in the process.
Most people do not like process, because that is the actuality of hard work. That is the continuation of what you have to do. That really speaks to what is required of you on a regular basis. And for most of the entrepreneurs that we know, no matter who they are, they all have that story of working until the lights are out. They all have that story of going to a bank perhaps and not getting the initial funding that they need. They all have that story of maybe putting out the first product and it's not working as well as they thought. That's part of it. But they keep on working. They keep moving. And at the end of the day, once that picture comes out on CNN, or we see them at USA Today, and we see them at a big gala or something like that, wow, this is what we say. Wow, now they have on the tuxedo. They're not crawling under the car fixing anything. And we see that, and we look at the income that it comes about as a result of their efforts, and then we say, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be that person. I want to be able to live on the south of France. I want to be able to go to Plantation City in Florida. This is what I want to do. And even though many of these people can do that, the process to getting there, the hard work, the determination that is necessary, those things tend not to change. Now, as I talked about this morning, most of you know that my world started in rural Mississippi. I mean, that was the only world I knew, the cotton picking world. And so with that being the background for my life, I mean, that kid could have very easily have been me, because all the sacks were 9 foot long. That's how long the sacks are. Now, when I started work at 5, I didn't have to have that sack. We had a smaller sack, a gunny sack. But once you got around your early beginning teenage years, you had the 9 foot sack. So with that being said, how do you get from Fields to Fremont? Fremont is our consulting company. We work with individuals literally around the world, human capital development, leadership development, all the types of things that is necessary to create a culture for success. But that just wasn't enough for me. I helped to bring Stairmaster to the world. We helped to start a bank in Oklahoma. And then all of a sudden I realized that coffee was the second highest traded commodity on the commodities market. And I realized that how many people, coffee is one of those things I love, because once you buy it and drink it, you can't give it back. You just go to the bathroom real quickly and you run back and get another cup. So I wanted to be involved in this. I wanted to have my coffee company. But again, I've been involved for 5 years. But how do you make these transitions? What do you have to do in order to get there? So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. At my desk in Tulsa, and you can tell that's a fake smile. It's not even moving, It's the camera guy telling me to do that. I'm just sitting there. Fold your hands, Mr. Taulbert. Look this way. That's what I'm doing. All right. This is our coffee. This is our retail coffee, Roots Java. It comes in 12-ounce bags to your house. That's it. Now, my thinking shifted. Entrepreneurial thinking is important at the level of the student because it gives students a reason to believe differently about their future and the possibilities. Entrepreneurial thinking is absolutely essential within corporate America simply because the dynamics of the workplace are such that they literally change within the hours. What you would have done 10 years ago probably does not work anymore. 20 years surely probably doesn't work anymore. And with the disruptions that come about, you need to have a staff that is nimble. You need to have a staff that is able to understand that we can come together in a very cohesive fashion and really look at the data, look at the vision, look at the mission, and see what will be required of us right now. So as the process of thinking takes place within an organization, that also brings about a transformation of how you respond to your circumstances. You can go to a company where everything is falling haywire, you're not quite sure what's going on, but if you can get your unit managers, your supervisors, your workers to understand how much of a part of the vision they are and how they can really add value to that system simply by thinking differently and understanding first and foremost that they can. Some people have done the same thing for 30 years and they have it down pat. They can do it in their sleep. That doesn't mean it's the right thing for today. So you have to realize, okay, the dynamics of today is of such that I have to be prepared to think and respond to circumstances as they occur, not as they were some 15, 20, or 30 years ago. So when that transformation takes place, you end up being inspired to win. Personally, I became my own cheerleader. And you need to be your own cheerleader. You need others, but don't forget to be your own cheerleader. Talk good stuff to yourself. You have enough people around you that can talk negative. So don't start telling yourself what you can't do. You start telling yourself what you can do. And as Abraham Lincoln did in 1860, when he was running for president of the United States, the Eastern establishment said this man will never make it. He's tall, he's ugly, he doesn't dress well, he tells coarse jokes, and he's lost as many cases as he's won. And he really doesn't know how to handle himself with the European dignitaries that will be coming into our country. But Abraham Lincoln, I am thoroughly convinced that he began to talk to himself, became his own cheerleader, looking at not the cases that he had lost. Let somebody else deal with that. Look at what you have won. Look at what you have done right. Look at what you are making happen. And no matter how small it is, learn to celebrate that. Secondly, I became future focused. And that's another part of the entrepreneurial mindset. Yes, I'm happy with the present, but there's always the future. And you heard it very clearly last evening when the Buffetts were talking. Being future focused keeps you on a track that is so different than any other track that you could be on because you are always anticipating something that could happen. You're not just settling for where you are. When I got on the airplane in Minneapolis, as I tell my son, I say, I only have the 24/7. I got to maximize that. If I'm going to be on an airplane for 3 hours, I'm going to be anticipating an opportunity on that airplane. I don't go on the airplane to sleep. I can sleep at home. I get on that airplane, whoever that seatmate might be, it may not work, but 3 out of 4 times, it usually does. And I met a guy who's the vice president of a major engineering firm here in your city of Omaha, between Omaha and Lincoln. Great guy. We literally talked the whole while, exchanged cards. He said, I want you to come by the plant when you're leaving, going back to Tulsa. I mean, if I was an engineer, guys, I got a job already. Just too bad I'm not an engineer. But you see what I'm saying? That expectancy is something that we can bring to the table. And that's what the mindset that we will talk about is so important. It helps us with that. And lastly, I was willing to expend the effort. And that's where a lot of us fail. My son has a small business in Los Angeles, and my son didn't grow up in the Mississippi Delta. He grew up in the suburbs of Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, he didn't grow up picking cotton, he grew up wearing cotton. You know, a whole different world from his dad. So he calls me one day from LA, he's on the 405, he's trapped in traffic, and he's just, I had to literally take the phone from my ear. He was just moaning and groaning and complaining. And finally I said, Marshall, how much cotton have you picked? And he hung up on me. He did. He called me back the next day. Okay, Mr. Taulbert, I got your point. I wanted him to understand he had no idea what hard work was. I mean, he was driving in an air-conditioned car that his mother had bought him for college graduation. So how can you have a problem? But we can find ourselves having a problem, not willing to expend the effort because we think the effort is going to come to us. But we have to expend the effort. We have to do that, and we can. Now, just as a bit of background, in 2008, in Davos, Switzerland, all of the economic leaders from around the world gathered to look at how the world would look in the 21st and the 22nd centuries going forward. And while that conference was in process, obviously they came to a decision. And the decision was thick. So I'm not going to give you the thick decision. I'm going to give you Clifton Taulbert's version of the decision. And it was this, that everyone can benefit from an entrepreneurial experience. And that is something I firmly believe, because it has really helped to shape my life. It has helped me to help others to understand what can be as opposed to what is not being. Just knowing that we have that ability, that those qualities, those traits that we admire, they are not held captive by a few people. Okay, I can do this. I will do this. I'll go back to the bank, which we're now talking about. When I was a kid, I had to go in the back door of the bank because of my color. Me and my uncle would go to make our deposits. That was back home in the Mississippi Delta. And so fast forward some to 2000, right at the turn of the century, my wife and I had an opportunity to become part of the de novo group of starting a new bank in Oklahoma. I'd never done this before in my life. I mean, banks exist, and you don't stop to think about how to get there. They're just there. They want your money. You want their loans. You know, it's just the bank is just there. And so that's the way I was. But I had this opportunity to become an investor in this bank with the group. And I said to myself, I can do this. But my wife asked the question, will we lose everything? I said, possibly. I said, but at the same time, you may not lose. And that's the other part of the entrepreneurial thinking, the ability to take a calculated risk. Because everything does not equal out that you're going to actually make it. But you want to be as diligent about that process as you possibly can. Yes, I can do this, and I think I will. And that process stays with you with a lot of other things that you do as well. Now, this is what we're going to talk about next, because this is where it starts. Thinking outside of the box. The entrepreneurial methodology, giving yourself an edge. Now, this is the box, okay? This is the box right here. Wayne will help me. He's going to give you an opportunity to go through this box. For a minute, you pull out something out of that box, just hold it. And we're going to talk about that. Because oftentimes to think outside of the box requires us to know what's inside the box. Because it is what is inside the box that keeps us from thinking outside the box. So I think it's important to look at Wayne, make sure you don't give it to everyone on the front row. Just go all around. Yeah. Give it all through the place. And so it's important to have an idea as to what are those elements that can keep us in the box. You go to an organization to work, you go to a company, you're looking at what they're doing, and they're saying, okay, this is what we need to do in order to be more competitive. This is what we need to do in order to stay abreast of the market and with the disruptions that are taking place. This is what we need to do right now. But what if you have people working with you, they hear that, but they don't quite know how to do that other thing. They don't feel comfortable going into an area that they feel maybe they don't have the expertise, or they're not willing to collaborate to get it to happen, but yet you need it to happen. And in today's world, not just because of technology, but mainly because of what technology has done, we have the opportunity now to really ask ourselves very hard questions. Why am I not moving forward? And these are the things, when we look at these, we'll have a sense of what the entrepreneur does not have to deal with, or they have decided not to deal with them. And those are the types of things that we admire about them as we go through that. So we're going to start over here. What does yours say, ma'am? You have to say it pretty loud so everybody can hear you.
Afraid to think differently.
Afraid to think differently. That will keep you in the box. Afraid to think differently. And in today's environment, we have to have a different way of thinking in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish. A different way of thinking. What is yours, ma'am?
This is not my job.
This is not my job. I mean, I know you haven't heard that in Nebraska. That's what we hear in Oklahoma. That's not in Nebraska. This is not my job. People are very comfortable saying this is not my job because I'm getting paid to do this. Why did this other thing come from? Well, in a dynamic marketplace, we have to deal with that other thing. We have to have a sense of that other thing. Let's see back there. Who has one back here? Yeah, what do you have, ma'am?
It might require too much effort.
Ooh, it might require too much effort. You know, I would do this, but I only got 24/7. If I had 28/10, I would do it. You know, but this might require more effort than I want to expend. That feeling alone keeps you inside the box. And if that is part of your thinking, it's very difficult to embrace what I would call the thinking that would give you a competitive edge. What about you, ma'am? What do you have?
This is the way.
This is the way. The way I'm currently doing it. We've done it for 30 years. We've made a good profit margin. I really don't care what anybody else is doing. Let's do it the way the founders started. This is the way it's done. So this is what we're going to do. That keeps you in the box as well. Now, let's think of the entrepreneur. Let's think of the Steve Jobs. Let's think of the Hewlett-Packards. Let's think of the Oprah Winfreys. Let's think of the men and women that we know within your own area, the Warren Buffetts, the Howard Buffetts, the people in your community. They were able to step out of the box simply because they were not letting these things inside the box hold them captive. What do you have, sir?
A play it safe attitude.
A play it safe attitude. There's nothing wrong with thinking in terms of, I don't want to mess up. But there's an attitude that's called play it safe. It's the attitude that will not let you move beyond your comfortable level. And you will stay there. And if that's where you want to be, that's okay. But that will not get you to the next plateau. That will not get you to the merger that you need. That will not get you to the purchasing power that you're looking for. That will not get you the partnership that you need. You're going to be where you are, and that's okay. But is that really what you want? Who has another one over here? Yes, sir.
Let somebody else do it.
Let somebody else do it, you know? I mean, that's in the box. There are so many things in the box which helps us to understand why it's difficult to think outside of the box. Because people, well, you just think outside of the box. It's simple. No, it's not that simple, because there are things inside that box that literally will hold you captive. What do you have, sir?
Don't like new ideas.
Don't like new ideas. I mean, you would think in the 21st century that we would be ramped up for new ideas. I mean, you got a big innovation center here. You know, when I came in early this morning around 7 o'clock, it still looked like it was night, but it was 7 in the morning. Your greenhouse was lit up. And, you know, it made me think of technology in action. I mean, it just, it was just so sharp and so compelling to drive by that thing every day. To me, it would make me, what new can I do? What new can I do? But again, having a sense of what's keeping us inside the box. Anybody else back here? It's already been done. I mean, there are myriad of excuses as to why we don't continue. Now, I won't be able to go through all of them because we have a lot of stuff to cover and only have an hour to do it. But even if you're scared to death, this is my suggestion. Put your hands on the box and slowly rise out of it and leave that stuff behind so that you can accomplish the things that you need. I mean, there are so many reasons why I should have never done some of the things that I've had the opportunity to do. But I've learned over the years what's holding me back. Some of those things I have no control over, some of them that I do. And those over which I have control, and if they are holding me out of the progress that I want to make, I'm going to find a way to get rid of those things so that I can embrace the things that are needed. And this is why this is so important to bring entrepreneurial thinking into our community colleges and into our high schools, especially among kids who come from areas that are socially, economically, and culturally underserved or deprived. Because it is so easy to think, I can't do this, and I understand that. But at the same time, if given the opportunity to think about, well, I'm inside the box, these are the things. However, outside the box might be more exciting. Let's walk outside of the box and see what I can discover. As I said in Shift Your Thinking, let me see if I can find my glasses. The first thing that happened to me, which I alluded to a little bit this morning, but I didn't go into it deeply, is this. I remember the day the shift in my thinking began. I was just a young boy, a teenager on the Mississippi Delta, picking cotton along Highway 436 in Washington County. From my vantage point, I could see all the traffic coming and going from the city of Greenville into our small Glen Allen community. However, it was the rare sight of the red-top cab from Greenville that always caught my attention. They were rare sights indeed. I would stand and watch the cab until I could no longer see it, always imagining the life of those on the inside, either headed to or coming from the train station. I knew their world was different from mine. Cotton season after cotton season, I watched for the cabs. But I recall the day when something changed inside my head. Watching was no longer enough for me. And that's an important thing. For many people, they watch the world from a distance. They watch other businesses from a distance. They watch other employees from a distance. And they recognize what is happening, but they don't seem to understand that what they see is not just for the other person. So that to me was a rare moment in time where I said that I would stand and watch the cab until I could no longer see it, always imagine the life of those on the inside, either headed to or coming from the train station. I knew their world was different from mine. Cotton season after cotton season, I watched for the cabs, but I recall the day when something changed inside my head. Watching was no longer enough for me. Those internal conversations about others and their imagined success were no longer exciting. I was no longer satisfied with the culture of servitude brought on by legal segregation in the cotton world of the rural South. I wanted what I dreamed, a world beyond the Delta. That day, while standing on a cotton road that didn't belong to me, instead of imagining who was on the inside of the cab, I pictured myself in the back. From that day forward, I embraced my new dream of myself. I realized that I could live beyond my circumstances. I didn't have to watch the lives of others. So shifting your thinking, once you get outside of that box, is where great things happen in the marketplace of life. Now we're going to talk about the starting decision. A decision always have to be made. Chapter 1 in the book is choose your mindset. The picture to my left here, perhaps, would be my great uncle Cleve, the man who ran the ice house in Glen Allen, Mississippi. I was his assistant. And that's where I first picked up on the idea that I didn't have to do what everyone else was doing. Once I decided that I could get in the back seat of that cab, went to work for my uncle, who owned the only ice house in our segregated community, which was very odd because everybody had to come to the same ice house. But I understood his mindset. As I said this morning, there were terms used there that we don't currently use today, and the big word was gumption. I mean, the people would simply say, Cleve has gumption. He just, and I know that's an encompassing word, is that he wasn't afraid to try something new. He wasn't afraid to go against the grain. He wasn't afraid to see himself in a different role. He wasn't afraid to step out of the shadows and be more than we thought that perhaps he could be. I can do this. I will do this. Now, the question is on your mindset. This is the decision making, fixed or growth. There are two mindsets, and Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University has done considerable work on the mindsets. The fixed mindset is the mindset that keeps us in the box. The fixed mindset is the mindset that oftentimes will keep a company from expanding, growing, acquiring, or becoming that next level. It's the same mindset that will keep a student from recognizing his or her abilities to achieve beyond their imagination, because that mindset keeps you locked in that box. And in that box, you'll become comfortable with all the answers that keep you there. You feed those answers. You feed anything, it'll stay with you. You give it it's like you put it in a big comfortable chair. It ain't going nowhere. It just talks to you, and all of a sudden you begin to believe that. So we have to make a decision. Choose your mindset. I can do this, I will do this. Now, what are the mindsets? Let's take a look at that real quickly so we have a real sense of that. The fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. The fixed mindset, I believe that my intelligence, personality, and character is inherent and static. The key word is static. This is who I am. This is my culture. I cannot move beyond this. That's a lie, but it becomes our reality when we embrace that. Secondly, the fixed mindset avoids failure, desire to look smart, avoids challenges, stick to what they know, feedback and criticism is personal, they don't change or improve. The fixed mindset literally keeps you on one road, and that's the road you're on. It doesn't even allow you to think about what other possibilities are. Whereas the growth mindset, I believe that my intelligence, personality, and character can be continuously developed. This is about effort being expended. The fixed mindset will tell us that our effort will accomplish nothing. That's why it's so easy not to do anything. Well, I can't do it, so I'm not going to put forth the effort because nothing is going to happen. Whereas the growth mindset believes that effort expended is the pathway to mastery. Does it always work? No. Does it work most of the time? Yes. We don't live in a world where everything works the same every single day. But there are certain things in the world, they do work, and we can take advantage of them. Now, the growth mindset desires continuous learning. And that's necessary at any time in our lives, and perhaps even more so today than ever before. Secondly, the growth mindset confronts uncertainties. You don't run away from them. You get a problem, you have a challenge, you begin to look for the opportunity. And this is what we faced when we started the coffee company. You know, we don't grow coffee in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? It's not like I can run down the street and find someone to tell me stuff. But I made this decision that we wanted to bring coffee from Rwanda, the best coffee in the world. That means I got to get it across the ocean. That means it got to get into a ship. That means I have to hook up with people that's doing more than I ever understood that was being done in that process. There's enough things I have to do that it's very easy to say, I can't do it. I just can't do all of this stuff. But the growth mindset is what I believe I've adhered to in my life. If somebody else can learn it, so can I. You know, I can learn this too. I can learn what is required. The growth mindset embraces challenges, not afraid to fail. And that's another part. You know, as human beings, we all want to be successful. No one wants to fail. But if we look through the lives of those people that we admire, we will find failure right along with success. The key thing is never park your car at failure. Don't park your car there and plant a tree. Don't do that. When you have failed, you look at it, okay, this is a lesson I didn't ask for, but I'm going to get whatever's out of this lesson I can, and I am moving from this spot. I am not going to park my life at this spot. I have failed in businesses, but I've also succeeded. And as any human being, when you fail, that's not a good moment. You have to go home and tell your wife she doesn't have the money in the bank she thought she had. So it's not a good feeling to fail, but you learn the lesson from that and you move on. You move on. Thirdly, put a lot of effort into, put lots of effort to learn, and that's right here. I mean, this is the break-even point right there, the effort. That's the hard work. That's the effort. The growth mindset is willing to put in the effort. When they invited me to come here to speak, I can show you the portfolio if you don't believe me how thick it is. I read everything I possibly could about Nebraska, about the university, about the Rural Futures Initiative. I wanted to understand what it was all about, intuitively understand that. You know, I wanted to come here and be as versed as I possibly could about what this university system was putting in place and what it could potentially mean. I could have easily said, sure, I can speak and I can just run and get, no, you don't do that. Not if you're me. Not if you're embracing the growth mindset. You want to do your very, very best, and your very, very best requires effort and hard work, and it's not always easy. I'm sitting up at the den, 2 o'clock in the morning, reading about Nebraska, trying to understand the agricultural business, trying to understand the history of the state. What are you trying to accomplish? Why are you putting these things forward? That's what the growth mindset will allow you to do, because it wants you to succeed, but at the same time, nothing is going to drop out of the sky on top of your head, and all of a sudden you open your mouth and go, phew, and it's sucked in. That's not the way it works. You got to put forth the effort in order to make it happen. Feedback is about current capabilities. Can I do this? Can I not do this? How do I value feedback? Last night, well, you got to know Ernst & Young, right? The accounting firm. Well, the president of Ernst & Young was with me, I was with him, I should say, at a conference in Atlanta last Saturday. And he said, Clifton, we really need to get you involved with our company because what you're doing entrepreneurially, it just fits right into our model. Now, I'm writing all this stuff up last night while you guys were asleep. I'm at the computer writing all this. So I wake up my friend in Corpus Christi, Texas. And here, I'm just a vulnerable person. I grew up in a school system where I did extremely well, but the language itself was not spoken well every day. And sometimes I write like I'm still in Mississippi. And I know that will go well at my house, but if I send it up to Ernst & Young, I got a problem. So I call my friend whose main goal in life is to tell me what I've done wrong. He would tell me exactly. So I sent him the document that I'm serious, for Ernst & Young. I said, okay, Grant, what have I done? And Grant goes, okay, I know you are a writer, but there is no reason for all these long run-on sentences. You gotta have a period. That's why they made periods, to stop some of this stuff. So I had to go in and say, okay, I can take this out. He said, and why do you use all these quotation marks? You don't need all these quotation marks. I said, why don't I need them? Because you don't. That's not good grammar. Take them out. I said, okay, fine, I'll take them out. But what I'm saying is this. I want to succeed. We don't always succeed by ourselves. There are other people who can bring information to the table. And we have to be of a mindset that will allow us to gather that information, be appreciative of the information, write Grant a thank you note. Grant grew up speaking a language on a daily basis that I didn't. Grant grew up in a very well-heeled white family. Grant knows how to talk. Grant knows how to write. I know how to pick cotton. Grant knows how to wear the cotton shirt. Two different worlds, but we're friends. And we can bring something to the table for each of us. And the growth mindset is not afraid of criticism. You take that constructive criticism and you make it work for you. And when I get back to Tulsa on Wednesday, I'm going to send Jim Turley an incredible document, but he will never know that the document was doctored by Grant. That's my business. I'm not telling him that. But he'll get a good document because I was not afraid to ask for help. That's the bottom line of that. So the first decision that you want to make, what mindset will you choose? The growth mindset or the fixed mindset? These are choices, and we can make that choice. And this is what William James said. Man can alter his life by altering his thinking. I know that sounds simple, simplistic perhaps, but we can literally alter our lives by altering our thinking, because it is the thought process that precedes the action we take. We take no action without having had a thought process preceding that action. So when we choose the right mindset, we set in place our thinking apparatus so that the action that will precede that will be the type of action that can move us to the next level of success. Now your process actions. Be determined. That's my uncle, that's Oprah Winfrey, and that's me with bags and bags of green coffee from Rwanda. I would never have 2810. Preparation matters, hard work expected. And in the book, I tell the story of Kevin Durant. That's our big, famous basketball player with Oklahoma Thunder. And I shouldn't use athletic metaphors because I'm not an athlete at all. I'm an embarrassment to the male population. I talked to Michael Jordan for 12 minutes. I had no idea who he was. I kept saying, this guy really looks familiar. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, the guys would just knock me out of the deal. I didn't know who the guy was. I had been introduced to David Robinson, who's like 10'8", I had to look up, try to find him. So when Michael Jordan came along, he was like a regular height. And no one said his name. I gave him a high five like everybody else. We talked. And the only reason I eventually knew it was Michael Jordan, my son, whom I had brought to the game, one of the last games Michael Jordan played in the Final Four, and my son, whom I love dearly. These are his words to me. Okay, Dad, no computer, no books, no notepaper, okay? You're going to do what I do at this game. When I holler, you holler. I don't care if you don't know why you holler. Just do what I do. And so I'm on the floor because the coach is one of my friends. I'm on the floor, and then all of a sudden, these guys come off the bus. I'm just standing there. And when my son rolls around the corner and he sees Michael Jordan, it is just like he's seen a heavenly vision. I mean, my son just craters. And he said, Mr. Jordan? And I said, oh, that's Michael Jordan. That's what I said, because I had no idea who he was. But Kevin Durant is known for making incredible three-pointers. It's like magic on the court. But the second part of the process is that the behind-the-scenes effort matter. The hard work that he does in order to get to that point, that's the work we don't see. We don't go with him to the workout sessions. We don't go with him to the time that he has to do all of this running, all of these push-ups. We're not there when the diet is being looked at. We're not there when he's having to do all this running, sweating to death. We're not there when 24/7 has become 28:10 or whatever. Just keep moving, trying to be your best. We're not there. We only see it on that court. And the magic takes place. But the magic takes place because of the back scenes, the work that has been done. And that's the same way it is with us. I mean, we have the right to experience the magic, but the magic will not take place without the effort being expended, about the hard work. So that's what Be Determined is about. It is literally about understanding that if you want to be successful, take the two secret words that I told you, HARD, WORK. Don't tell anybody else. That will get you further than you ever thought you could go. Madam C.J. Walker, the first the first female millionaire in our country. I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it. Don't sit down and wait for the opportunity to come. Get up and make them. And that takes a lot of quote-unquote gumption at times to step out of a cultural morass and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. But this is what people have done all the time. Now, you see this, there's a quarter on this book. There's a quarter. And if I ask you, what can you do with a quarter and a good idea? What do you think, Mr. Lee?
What can I do with a quarter?
Yeah, 25 cents, 25 pennies and a good idea.
Want an idea?
Not much, a lot, heap of stuff.
I don't think you can do a lot with a quarter.
Not a lot with a quarter. What do you think, ma'am? What can you do with a quarter and a good idea?
Sell it to someone else.
Well, that's a start. It may not be right, but that's a start. What do you think? What can you do with a quarter, Paul, and a good idea?
I flip it.
Flip it. Okay, Paul, you can flip it. Okay, guys, what can you do with a quarter? Yes, ma'am. Very motherly, but wrong. Sounds good. What can you do with a quarter? You'll be all night trying to figure that. Have you ever heard of Tyson's Foods? It's $1 billion company. John Tyson 1932, started his company. All the man had was a broken down pickup truck, half a bale of hay, and 25 cents. That's when he started Tyson's Food, which is now a multi-billion-dollar international company. The right mindset, a great idea, and 25 cents, and hard work. You see, you don't get a cake simply because you got flour. You don't get a cake simply because you got milk. You don't get a cake simply because you got sugar. You don't get a cake simply because you got flavor. You get a cake because you mix all that stuff together and you got a stove and you cook it. Having 25 cents by itself gets you nothing. You're absolutely right, Mr. Lee. But 25 cents with the right mindset, 25 cents with the effort you're going to put forth to make it happen, 25 cents believing that nobody can stop me from accomplishing what I need. He did not start out as John Tyson today. He did not start out selling chickens. He started out selling chicken coops to haul chickens for other people. And along the way, and this is what we have to imagine, it's sometime along the way that we discover the opportunity that we were really truly looking for that we did not know in the beginning. And that's why the mindset is important, because it keeps you focused on what is possible. When I got in the coffee company, I was not looking to start a coffee company. I had gone to Little Rock, Arkansas to give a speech at a high school. And the headmaster said, I want you to meet this friend of mine. The friend happened to be the guy with the coffee company who's the president of a college. And so I didn't know any of this. About a year and a half later, we had gotten to know each other. And he said, Clifton, you know, I have this coffee company, but I haven't done anything with it. I have all this access to all this coffee in Rwanda. He said, I don't know. He said, would you ever think about, coming being a partner with me on this? And I asked my wife, and wives are very good at saying no. N-O, no, with a question, big exclamation point, no. But I finally convinced her to say yes. That's what husbands do. You convince your wife to say yes. I finally convinced her to say yes. And we started the company, and now 5 years later, we're selling stuff. We're moving regionally. And our online business is national. We got the best coffee in the country. And you will not leave without a coffee card. That's another thing, too, about entrepreneurship. Every opportunity you have, you take it. Intelligently, though, but you take it. Every opportunity you have. But I know they're going to tell me my time's up pretty soon. Build solid relationships. Zuckerberg, the king of relationships, sorta. A marketplace, it is a people place. No one invents just for themselves. Hewlett and Packard may have been in the garage, but they were trying to fix something in that garage that somebody else needed and someone else will buy. At the end of the day, we will always be looking for that person or that group of people to purchase what we have made, what we're thinking about, or what we have added value to. So with that being said, we have to always remember we have to come out of the doldrums. We have to come up for air sometime to build solid relationships all along the way. And that takes effort. A high five is not a solid relationship. A little twixy tweet, that's not a solid relationship. An email that is improperly spelled, that's not a good relationship. You have to touch people. You have to shake hands. You have to have coffee together, and preferably my coffee. You have to have coffee together and stuff like that. To build those solid relationships, that's what you really, truly have to do. And that's what the entrepreneurs do. They understand that. They build this cohort around them, and they really get to know them really, really well. People matter. RAY is essential. And RAY is an acronym for respect, affirmation, and inclusion. Those are the three things that every human being on the face of the earth needs in order to maximize their potential. It's like a three-legged stool. You take one of them out, you got a problem. But you leave all three there, the stool stands straight. And if you don't believe me, let's go back to Alexander the Great. I think around the 4th century. Alexander became the big guy at a very young age when his dad died. And he went on to become a great general, a great leader. And one of the things he did, he built a three-legged stool. And I love this because I asked you, why did he build the stool? But now you kind of know. After every battle, what Alexander would do, he would take that three-legged stool and he would leave his tent. And that's another thing what successful people do. They are not mesmerized by the corner office because very little happens in the corner office. You get out of that office, you go down those halls, you go into the field, get to know your people, and get your people to know you. So that that sense of ownership that is absolutely essential for sustained success happens. And this is what Alexander did for a long time. He would go to every battle, and he would take that three-legged stool, sit among the men that were maimed, and he would ask them, what can we do different? Can we make another piece of weaponry? How can we win the next battle? I mean, he was getting information from the people in the field where it was really needed. And when I work with the pipeline companies, you know, I know most of the officers sit on the 50th floor. People love 50th floors in America. We just love the 50th floor. It's the view. I guess that's what it is. We love the 50th floor. But I tell them, if you don't know what's going on at the wellhead, you got a problem. Because you can lose your business at the wellhead, not necessarily on the 50th floor. You got to know your people. Time is moving fast, guys, because I see Mr. Wayne standing up. Sandra Day O'Connor says this: we don't accomplish anything in the world alone, and whatever happens is the result of the whole tapestry of one's life and all the weavings of individual threads from one to another that create something. That's why having this relationship with people matter, because it doesn't matter what mindset I choose, it doesn't matter how determined I am, it doesn't matter how good Kevin Durant is, it doesn't matter how hard he works, the Oklahoma Thunder will never put him on that floor by himself. Shift your thinking, win where you stand. Slow down to lead. People would do what they see me do. People would do what they see you do. Slow down to lead is not about stopping. Oftentimes in the world of business, some of us are so driven. And in that process of being driven, we just unfortunately assume that everyone else understands what their responsibilities are. I mean, we're just going 50,000 miles an hour. And we may be sending a little memo here, a little stuff here, but we're not taking the time to really give the other people on our team an opportunity to maximize their leadership skills as well. Leadership and followership is one coin, just two sides, but they move in tandem. And you really cheat yourself when that other side of the coin, the followership coin, that side, does not know what's going on. And that's one of the problems that I have, because I love work, don't mind problems, and no one works fast enough for me. I mean, there was one guy who worked for me, he still does part-time, but he worked so well for me that he started his own business, which I taught him too well. But he's a guy who could think faster than me. No, I got it already taken care of, Mr. Taulbert. Everyone else is saying, well, what's next? But in a business, the thing moves so fast, you got to have people telling you, I've already done what's next. That's what you're looking for. I've already done what's next. Your actions send signals. And that's so important, because oftentimes we don't necessarily think about our actions, how they look, what they're saying, and how they might feel. We just don't really think about it. We're just doing our thing. We're being the president. We're being the CEO. We're being the senior vice president. We're being the founder of the company. But our actions send signals, and people literally read those signals. And they tend not to talk about them with you. They talk about them with their peers who've also seen the same signals, don't have the background information, but they have a whole conversation, most of the time not even close to what you intended. But keep in mind that you send signals. And because you send signals, it's important to be really aware of what you're saying, what you're doing, and the impact that can have internally and externally as well. Albert Schweitzer said, and I agree wholeheartedly, example is not the main thing influencing others, it's the only thing. Because people literally look at what we do, and they make decisions based on what they see. Within business, this is absolutely a critical thing. And I know that most people do not talk, and Mr. Wayne is telling me that the example that I have to give is to quit. And I hate to quit, guys, because I love this. I just love it. I love entrepreneurial thinking. I love choosing the right mindset. I love what it does. I love what it challenges us to do. But Mr. Wayne, I will follow your advice. I'll go to this one and then I will quit. I'll make it real quick. Know your business health metrics. That's so important. No measurement, no accountability. You got to know what's going on in the business. I mean, there's no excuse for not knowing what's going on. That's Tommy Hilfiger. When Tommy was 25 years old, he had already become a giant in the clothing industry. But at 25, sometimes you don't have the wisdom to go along with your exuberance. And he had the exuberance, he had the business, he was doing well financially. He was doing so well financially, he took his eyes off the ball. He took his eyes off the books. And he almost went completely, totally bankrupt after having done so well. But then he decided, he made a pivot. He decided, okay, what do I need to do? I can't do what I've done. I got to do something else. I'm going to save my business. And that's when he decided that I would know every aspect of this business going forward. I would never, ever just look at the money and the money makes a decision for me. I am going to know what's going on. No measurement, no accountability. You got to have a business where accountability matters and it means things to people. There are two more, but I don't think Mr. Wayne's going to let me do it. Could I have one more minute, Mr. Wayne? Thank you. One more minute. Thank you, sir. If you set a goal, track it. And this is what Stephen Covey said. And the fact is, I worked with Stephen Covey. We were part of the Korn Ferry International Content Professors. And we did leadership training around the world, not together, but our programs were meshed as complementary programs through the online programs. An empowered organization is one in which individuals have the knowledge, the skills, desire, and opportunity to personally succeed in a way that leads to collective organizational success. If you have 5,000 people and 5,000 people are operating on all cylinders, you got a great company. And one of the things that 5,000 people will need, according to the CFO of Ford Motor Company, I'm at Ford Motor Company, Dearborn, Michigan, just had a meeting with Edsel Ford. I'm walking up the elevator with the CFO who had read the book that I talked about this morning, 8 Habits of the Heart. He said, what could happen to Ford Motor Company if all of our people experience multiple microdosages of unselfishness on a daily basis? It can literally change things. One individual, 5,000 individuals, the organizational success of the company is based upon the people who work within that organization. The organization itself does not exist, for the most part, corporately, yes, but it does not exist apart from the people. We are the organization. We are the good, the bad, or the difference of that. Slow down to lead. Her new focus, new results. Easy is not guaranteed. That is so important. That's Mary Kay Ash. That's Herb Kelly of Southwest Airlines. Almost 50 years of operating in the black. 1967 to 1971, it took them to get their airplanes off the ground. All they wanted to do was go 3 places, Austin, Houston, and Dallas. That's all. That's all. I mean, they could do that. They thought it was going to be a cakewalk, but every major airline was against them. It took them 3 years to get the first plane off the ground. And the first thing that Herb Kelly did, he realized that he had something that no one else had. Those were his employees. And he realized that he could do something that no one else had done. He realized that food was a great cause, but if I have my employees treating you like you're kings and gods and queens and princesses, they would take peanuts and literally think they're getting a filet mignon. 46 years, the man hadn't changed. You're still getting peanuts on Southwest Airlines, and you're still crowding that plane, and he's still making tons of money, and he hasn't served you a steak yet. But his people have made you feel absolutely wonderful. When you are squeezed, the squeezing does not have to make you stop. The squeezing that he experienced from 67 to 71, it caused him to realize I cannot look at the airline industry the way my friends have because I have to compete with them. I have to do something different. So sometimes swimming upstream gives you the opportunity to have a new focus, to pivot and make decisions that you would not have made otherwise. So don't rue the day when you have to stop and look at how do I turn this around? Because once you get that mindset, things are much better. Guys, I really appreciate it. You won't get the 7th one because I know you got other things to go to. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you about
Let's give Clifton a hand. Maybe just one question if anyone has a question. One question.
Okay.
You caught me on that
Nelson Mandela said it's always seems impossible till it's done. Number 7 is resolved to succeed. My Uncle Cleve, Colonel Sanders, and the other basketball guy Magic Johnson, there he is. Okay. Count your small wins, wrestling at midnight. And this is what Abraham Lincoln said: always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any one thing. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. At the end of the day, it's your resolution to succeed that is more important than any one thing. Thank you, Mr. Wayne. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again, Clifton.